Love it, love it, love it. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Reverend Kevin Lee, checking in with my peeps, my family on here online this evening. And just wanted to basically bring you all together into our community because this is our Live with Kevin Lee podcast episode that we're streaming. And we have a very special guest that I will introduce to you in just a moment. And I'm just going to peep into some of our channels to see who is with us. I always love to see who's with us this evening. So let's just see. We're going to jump into Facebook and see what is really going on over here. Facebook, I can see several of you already. Let's see. You know, it's already Friday evening, which is just incredible. The week has flown by, hasn't it? Good to see you. Wonderful. Good to see you, Nikki. Hi, Jane. Good to see you from Canada. Great to see you. Thanks for jumping in this evening. Marvelous. And as we skip over to our YouTube channel, just to see who's checking in, what do we have this evening? There you guys are. Perfect. Good to see you as well, my dear. Nikki in Austin. Wonderful. Who else do we have here? Perfect. Marvelous. Well, everything looks like it's smoking, working beautifully. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to go ahead and start off this episode of Live with Kevin Lee by really just welcoming you back to this experience. You know, when we do these podcasts, we do this because I do this because I want to bring a little bit of light into your life. And there are a lot of people that I've been connected with, especially in the last year, who have really changed my life, have brought me new perspectives, have brought me new connections, new business, new friends. And in this time of being so disconnected from everybody, I think it's pretty amazing that we can do virtual gatherings like this. You can come into my living room or my office studio, and I can come into your home. And so I really appreciate all of your text messages, all of your emails, staying in touch with me, and staying in touch with each other, because we have to remember, without our friends, life isn't so fun. So reach out to your friends, tell them you love them, tell them you miss them. And if you can hug them, go hug them. Listen, so I would like to go ahead and jump on in and begin to share who our special guest is this evening. I've been so eager to share her with you. She's a dear friend of mine. She's a successful businesswoman. Many of you probably have known her for several years as an event producer herself, and really just the right-hand lady to many very well-known names, let's just say. Let me just share with you a little bit about her. This is my dear Paula Meyer. And after becoming a widow at 54 years of age, Paula left her job. She began a year of travel. And really, it was from a place of healing her heart. And as her travel ended, the COVID-19 pandemic began. And the strategies that she implemented for navigating grief of her husband's passing, it also helped her with the grief from the pandemic and all of the social unrest that has become very familiar in all of our lives, hasn't it? And so losing her freedom, losing her lifestyle, she was thrown into the unknown just as her business was beginning. And I can attest to the same type of feeling. You know, Paula, for the last 30 years, she's been very experienced in this world of metaphysics and in event production. And she's been an event planner. She's been a contracting specialist with 12 years in author speaker management. And that's what I was speaking to earlier. She definitely is upholding the sunshine and the luminaries in the world. She has organized, she has managed over 130 workshops around the world. I'm not kidding. Her company, GP Event Work, specializes in event production for speakers and speaker teacher workshops, especially metaphysical, spiritual, life betterment type workshops, which we all love. And she definitely has begun to do that, especially with grief retreats for women. And she's going to speak to that very soon. So good evening. Welcome, Miss Paula Meyer.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I've been waiting to have you on my show, and I really appreciate you making time in your busy schedule. I know you've got a big summit coming up. Do you want to share with people quickly about this summit?
Yeah, so this online summit for women is called Gloom to Bloom,
Mhm.
and it's about transforming the grief landscape. And basically, it's a 4-day summit that starts on April 22nd to the 25th. So it goes Thursday to Sunday. And I've got 20 speakers, including myself, that are going to share with women that need some support with grief. And it's not just about the grief of losing a loved one, but also grief that comes about by any kind of circumstance or tragedy, including divorce, job or career challenges, community or family challenges, COVID. And one of the things that I learned on as I was locked down was that the mechanics of grief are very similar, and the things that helped me cope with my husband's death helped me cope with what was going on with COVID. So I took those tips and strategies and learnings that I came up with while I was traveling to really help me with the whole thing. And so I just wanted to, I kind of decided, I think it was maybe in April-ish, a month into the pandemic, that I was going to write this book. And I wrote a book about my year of travel and also about my husband's life and death.
Sure.
And so I really feel like I want to share that with everybody now, that I want to, there's always a possibility for joy and lots of good life left to live. And especially for me at a young age, I was only 54 when Gary died. And I spent 21 years with him, and I realized I probably had much more life to live than I spent with Gary. And I didn't want to spend that time being sad and angry and mad. And I know that he would want me to be happy. And he told me that before he passed. So I would just want to honor that for him and myself. So
I love that. That's so beautiful. It's really interesting because you mentioned a couple of things. I'm just sharing real quick with our viewers and our listeners. This is the image for the Gloom to Bloom Summit that she was speaking about. So definitely, and as a reminder, I will be putting more information about this in the detail section of these videos. So you can come back later if you want to pop in and keep your eyes on that. But Paula, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned you wrote a book. So would you tell us a little about the book, the title, and really, you briefly mentioned why you wrote it, but is there really a central message to the book?
Yeah, well, this is the book. It just came off the press. We're actually launching it on April 13th. And I'll be doing 2 Facebook Live launch parties in my Facebook group on the 13th. At 10 a.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. Pacific. And during that launch, you can get a free Kindle version of the book. And the book is called Great Loss, Greater Love, The Art and Heart of Navigating Grief. And you can see this little journal, which is this guy.
I love that.
As I mentioned earlier, the book is partly my year of travel, but also about Gary. And Gary and I both struggled all of our lives with expression. And that's where his cancer was in his throat. And so I feel like this is a labor of love for both of us. It's sharing both of our stories. And this little journal is actually his journal. I bought this for him in London. I was there in 2016 for work, and it was late November. I was strolling through Hyde Park, and there was a little, they had all their holiday.
Oh, I love it.
Shop, market thing. And so I bought this for him, and he used like the first 32 pages of it. And then when he passed, I took it with me on my year of travel. So I finished the journal.
I love that.
One of the things in my book that I share in each chapter is a quote from him. It's called Gary Shares, and it comes from one of his journals. He had several journals.
Marvelous.
And so I really feel like this is a way that I can share his story. He had an amazing healing story before I even met him. And then he was really the one that helped me get onto my spiritual path. And so I just wanted to share. He had wanted to write a book, and he never did. He never felt confident in his voice and in his message. So I wrote it for him. So it's our story together.
Wow, that's a good karmic step on your behalf. Yeah. I know that you've loved him deeply, and you still do. But just to be able to take somebody's light in their message and carry that, make sure that carries forward like a living legacy. Really, I love that word legacy, and I put that in the title of my own book because I love the word. The light that we put forward it touches other people, and then that carries on to other people that they share that knowledge with. So the light of your husband is being shared with other people now. So I think that's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. And one of the other things that in the book too is that each chapter has an activity at the end,
Right.
and it's a way to really, you know, kind of think about things, contemplate things, hopefully take some steps forward. And then each chapter also ends with a little exercise that I started doing about halfway into my year of travel.
Sure.
And it's called my the Day Tripper Challenge. And what I realized, you know, I went from a really busy job and taking care of Gary
Sure.
during the last 7 or 8 months of his life, and I didn't take any time for me. I just didn't. I pushed all my grief down. I knew
Yes.
his death was coming, and I put all my energy everywhere except with me. And I ended up he died June 1st, 2018 in November on the 12th, on my
Yes.
55th birthday. I was in the hospital getting my appendix out. And I know that is from stuffing my energy, stuffing my grief, stuffing my feelings. And, you
Yes.
know, if a lot of people on here are probably familiar with Louise Hay's work
Oh,
and
yes.
book, How to Heal Your Life. And
Absolutely.
I
Rich
looked
made me a
up
sermon on it.
yeah, I looked up what appendicitis is, and it's the fear of life. You know,
Wow.
I was fearful of what life was going to be
Wow.
with the illness, right? And then his death, and then afterwards. And so, um, you know, I think that one of the best things that I learned from
Uh,
that appendicitis was to check in with my body, to get connected to my body, because our bodies are our best
mhm.
dashboard or indicator of what's going on with us in all areas of our life. And most of us don't really connect with or pay attention to our bodies. And when we do, it's usually negative stuff like, oh, your hair's a mess, or
My
eyebrows are a
butt, my
mess, or
hair.
feet are too big, or whatever it is, you know. And so I really, anyway, getting back to the daily thing that I
Yes.
did, because what happened was when I started traveling, I traded all that busyness for planning my travel. I mean, I knew that I had to put me first, and that's
Right.
why I resigned from my job. But it took me a little bit to navigate from that busyness, you know, just being busy and not really thinking about things. So about a few months into my travel, I realized, you know, I'm not really being present with this. And the whole
Wow.
purpose of traveling was to be present. You know, I traveled so much with my work that I didn't have time to really connect in each place that I was at. So this whole year of travel was about that, about connecting and seeing these amazing places. And so this, what I call the Day Tripper Challenge, that we do at the end of each chapter is, it's called Day Tripper because my one of my favorite bands is the Beatles. I love that
Okay.
song Day Tripper, and I love the idea that I could trip my brain into thinking a different thought,
Yes.
like a pattern interrupt. And so the three things that I looked for every day were something to be grateful for,
Mhm.
because there is always something to be grateful for,
Yes.
even if it's I woke up today. You know, that's a great thing to be grateful for. The second thing was laughter, finding something funny that, you know, tickles your funny bone. And, you know, that just raises your energy immediately. And if you can't find something to laugh about, you can at least find something to smile about. And then the third thing was the divine, find something divine in every day, whether that's a
Wow.
beautiful sunset,
I love that.
with friends and family. And so what I did with that, is I posted that every day to my Facebook group, and then I also journaled about it. So it
Right.
was kind of a twofold exercise that was really good for my expression. That first I, you know, verbally expressed it to my Facebook group, and then I wrote it out. So I think that and just connecting with my body were like two of the most important things that I learned. And
Do you find that it's easy to connect with your body in response, or even others, like teaching this principle? Because you've said it a couple of times about how you started paying attention to your body. How was your body reacting to situations, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually? And you mentioned the appendicitis and the hospitalization. So, is there something that you explain or that you teach in the book, or that you will be speaking to in your summit around being body aware around grief?
yeah, there is one activity that we do about body awareness in the book. And for me, when I was going through probably a couple years before the appendicitis,
Mhm.
I was getting, pains in my abdomen area,
Wow.
lower back pain. And I even had a couple of blood tests that indicated that there was a concern,
Huh.
in that area of my body. And I just thought, "Oh, okay, well, whatever." And I just, I didn't take it seriously. And honestly, I thought to myself, all this work that I'm doing, taking care of my husband and taking care of my job and all of the people that we were interacting with at our workshops, they were spiritual type workshops.
Sure.
Certainly God's going to take care of me, right? Because I'm doing God's work, right? But what I found is, I'm responsible for my body.
I just
Not
said that on
even,
a previous
yeah,
call.
not
Just
even God,
yes,
that's
we
my,
are responsible.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the key thing. And so over time, you know, clues from our body can come in many ways. It can be a gut feeling, or it can be butterflies, or it can be an ache or a pain. It could be a fluttering in your heart, or butterflies, or your skin feels like it's crawling, or your hair stand up. I mean, there's lots of things, and most of the time we just like, oh, what, we just write it off as nothing. But what I've learned now is that I've been able to make a correlation between when I start getting those cues from my body, and if I don't do anything about them, something develops very quickly within my body, and I know I've got to step back, I got to take care of it. And over time, I've just learned that when I feel those, whether it's just my body feeling it or just an intuition, I stop. I focus on where in the body that's happening, and I ask the question, what are you trying to tell me? What do I need to know? And usually I'll get an answer. And, it's not like a voice that's going to say, you need to
Sure.
do this and this, but I just get, depending, something will happen. Whether it's a song that plays, or whether it's somebody who happens to call me or
Right.
text me, or a
In
dream.
divine time, right?
Yes, I'll get
Makes
the
sense.
answer. But the interesting thing though is that the body, it'll learn to trust you. And the thing is, the body is a great servant to us as well.
Absolutely.
It protects us, and it will protect us a lot. I
Mhm.
mean, my body protected me a lot against all of that, but there's always a breaking point that it just can't handle if you don't do something about it. And
Absolutely.
one of the other things that I do, and I'm going to be doing it in the summit, is what I call a body gratitude exercise. And it's only like 10 minutes. It doesn't take very long, but it's my version of, I've done these before where somebody, I don't know who
Sure.
did this with me. It was a guided meditation, and they took you from like you laid down, they took you from like your feet to your head,
Uh-huh.
and you're just connecting with your body. But for me, anytime I lay down, I fall asleep. So I never made it past
Me
my
too.
knee, right? So what I started doing for myself was I would sit up, and I would actually do the same thing, except for I would touch that each part of my body. And as I touched it and sent it good energy, I would say, thank you, feet, for allowing me to walk, to take me on a trip or on a walk with my loved ones.
Mhm.
Thank you for supporting my body. I love you and I hear you. And then I would do that with each part of my body until I got all the way up to here and
I love
above.
that.
And the thing with that is that I'm actually being present. I'm not falling asleep. I'm actually touching and putting my awareness on each part of the body. And the body likes to be,
Ab-
it likes to be
Absolutely.
talked to
Let me
and
ask you a couple.
touched. And
Has there been anything in your grief journey that has really helped you a lot? One or two things, a few things?
well, the biggest thing that helped me was travel. And the reason behind that, I know a lot of times, people will say, well, you just take your baggage with you, right? If you don't change internally, that's not gonna. But if you take your baggage with you, and you know that your baggage is there with you, and the journey is about addressing that and healing that, then I think it works really great. For me, what I was endeavoring to accomplish was to go from Paula and Gary,
Yes.
just Paula.
To Paula
And
on a journey.
yeah, and I knew that if I just stayed in my usual environment with
Yeah.
everybody who knew me with Gary, that I would never be able to become this new person, this new Paula without Gary, or Paula empowered, or
Sure.
whoever the new Paula is.
Wow.
And the reason behind that is because, everybody that is used to you, we're conditioned to act a certain way with them. They're used to us a certain way. So when we try to be different, you know how that is. It's like, oh, why are you doing that? Or don't go travel by yourself, or that's not safe, or
Right.
and they're just trying to protect you. But what I found was I could go out, travel to another country, meet up with new people, new friends, and they only know me as Paula. They don't know me as Paula with Gary. And so then I'm free to be the me that I want to be. I'm free to bring forth
Mhm.
that new person. And there's nobody around me to say that I can't.
I
And
love that.
so that's what I love about traveling.
How empowering. And also, like, I think you briefly touched on it in the beginning. You said you wanted a change of environment out of the typical energy. And so, for instance, my home energy, if I come here to work on creative projects, I get distracted by Facebook,
Right,
YouTube, Instagram, projects, everything. And so, what I find I do is I either take myself to a beach, a park, even outside into my garden. I will go to a library that I know is super quiet that no one goes to. Or I might even go to a healing prayer room in a church because there's not many people in there and it's
right,
super quiet and I can just sit at a desk for hours. So I will extract myself to connect with that divine part of me to say, all right, higher self, angels, God, I showed up. I'm here to create, but I'm here for the journey. So
right,
pour through me. Send who needs to come into my life to guide me to create this project or this event or something. And I find it always it's a fresh new foundation for whatever I'm working on because I've taken myself out of my environment and it's almost like it tells the universe I'm ready for new opportunities because
right.
I'm serious enough to get out of my routine. And it sounds like that's what you did. You got
Yeah.
out of your routine, which is very, I can tell you being a nurse for so many years, 26, a long time, 26 years, I've dealt with a lot of patients, family members, especially those who have lost loved ones because of disease and things like that. And they often struggle with the concept of should I be in mourning for 1 year, 5 years? Do I date? Do I dare start a new business? What will my family think of me? Or what about going on a trip, going on a cruise by themselves? The family's mortified, but that is their preconceived notions about what you should be doing, which really is irrelevant because our soul is responsible for no one but itself. And
Right.
so I love the idea that you really your soul knew to empower you. Get up and get on the road because if you think about it, it puts you in the midst of nature, and all of the poets, the writers of history have always said, even the gurus and the shamans, they say that the best way to connect to that divine source and to receive new wisdom is to get into nature, to
Right.
go on walks, go on journeys. And that's really what you did. You went on a walkabout, if that's what they call it.
Right. Right.
So I
Yeah.
love that.
That's it. That's exactly right. And nature is like the best. I mean, anytime I'm feeling down or out, I just go out in nature or a pet. Pets love you no matter what. So, the other thing that was super important for me, and this took a little bit of time to feel good about this, but it's important to find the gift or that
Right.
pearl of wisdom or that golden nugget of
Absolutely.
any tragedy that happens to us. And I am a firm believer now that you can find one no matter what.
Wow.
And I
What's
think
been
that
your greatest gift?
for me, it's this, helping other people. And I when I look at my life with Gary and now my life without him, the gift in it is, I started asking myself the question, what am I now that I wasn't then? And who have I met and what have I experienced now that I
Wow.
didn't experience with him? And the truth of the matter is that, and this is not, I mean, I would love for Gary to be here, but he's not, and he's not, he's not going to come back, at least
Sure.
physically here.
Right.
And so what I have learned is that, um, you know, I wouldn't be an author if Gary was still alive. I
Right.
wouldn't know you, Rev Kevin, if
That's true.
Gary was still alive. I wouldn't know all these ladies that I'm connected with and helping if Gary was still alive. And I would still be living in Washington State and
Wow.
probably working the same job.
Sure.
And so I think that's a really important thing to think about. And usually you have to, that comes a little bit later in the grieving process, because in the beginning you're just trying to get through.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
once you've gotten to a place where you're feeling better about it, you've moved that yucky energy out so that there's
Sure.
room for new stuff to come in. That's when you can start looking for the pearls.
Wow.
And they're there. You
Wow.
just got to be willing to see them.
That, I think that's very true, because even in that concept of death and birth, or creation and destruction, there has to be destruction in order for creation to have the components.
Right.
So it's like in that ever eternal circle of energy, the giving and receiving of the universe. The black holes are really the destroyers in the universe, and the stars are the birthers. And so there's this incredible mix of all this. That's the little nerd in me. I love all that science fiction stuff, but it's really true. Everywhere we go, there's birth and death. Well, what is it? Well, birth is simply the coming in of a soul into human form, or the spirit of God or the universe comes in a very living, dynamic way into the plants and the animals and the creatures. And then when their time is done, or their mission is solved, their purpose is achieved, then they return through that great veil and they go back to spirit, so that there's a release of the material back into this plane. So there's just this constant change of energy. And I think that's really fascinating from a metaphysical perspective, because like they say, nothing is ever lost, especially that divine essence. So even though there may be the tragedy of loss, I know, being a spiritual medium, that I can't tell you the number of times that I tell clients, because I can sense it being told to me from their loved ones, or from master teachers or saints or whoever's coming around. And they'll say things like, the separation that is caused by transition or death, it's just a closing of a chapter. The book is not
Right.
annihilated. The journey is not stopped. It's just a new journey for that soul. And so spirits, I'll call them spirits, your loved ones, can actually come back and serve you in a much greater capacity. They can open doors. They can guide people into your path. They can guide people like you into my life, people like Susie Carter, our dear friend, a prophet coach. But it's those people that come into our lives that literally change the trajectory of our lives. And I believe there are loved ones around me in spirit that have guided all of this into my life, because I know Susie, our friend Susie, came into my life in a very spiritual way, because she literally used the words on a podcast I was using in prayer, asking spirit to bring somebody like her into my life. Then there she pops in. So I know one of my loved ones said, "Oh, is that what you want, Kevin? Let me send you someone." And that's what's so amazing. We have to realize that our loved ones who do make a transition, and they go before us into the afterlife, they're not gone. They're just in a different way. They're on their own journey. They do come and visit us, and they support us. And it's a good thing. It's not easy. I've been there. I've cried my tears for lost loved ones. But I realized, I cried for a few months, and then I realized, I'm focusing way too much on myself and my sorrow, when I need to be blessing them on their journey, and sending them love, and sending them well wishes and prayers, and saying, I hope you have a beautiful journey wherever you're at today. Things like that. And that gets us out of that woe is me mentality. It's good to grieve. It's good to mourn and be respectful, but at some point we have to realize it's focusing too much on ourselves, and that actually will hold the spirit back to the earth plane and not allow them. They hear us grieving, they feel us, and so it will pull them to us as humans on earth, because they want to console us. So we have to remember to always, we can mourn a period of time and grieve, and there are even moments. I'm a spiritual medium, and there are moments when I sit and cry. I miss my mom, but I know she's around. I see signs from time to time. So I just thank her and just trust I'll see you in 30, 40, 50 years. It's not too much longer. I'll be there, and we'll go have dinner, things like that. So I'm always talking to my loved ones in spirit, and my pets, as though they're still alive, because they really are.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that your audience especially appreciates, and definitely mine does, because I'm always speaking about it. You've really created something. I truly believe that your husband was a catalyst for this new journey. I like to call them stepping stones.
Yes.
And his departure was simply the catalyst to allow you to take flight in a much bigger way. And he definitely is there shining the light, guiding you to these new experiences, the summit, people. It's really an incredible concept when you think about what you've created. Would you mind just telling our viewers again, if, especially if we have some new viewers now, just tell them a little more about the Grief Summit? You can tell them what they might experience, the days, things like that. And then I'll be sure to drop in to our chat window again for all of these videos, the registration links and details about it so you guys can follow up as well.
Yes, yes, certainly. It's a 4-day grief summit. It is for women. However, you might, if you saw the pictures, you'll see there's like 6 men in the speaker pool, and that's because the other men, along with Reverend Kevin, are amazing men, and they have great stories around navigating grief and moving through it. And so I didn't want to limit the speakers to just women. However, the summit is just for women because I want to create a safe place for women to connect and learn and feel safe. And basically, it's based on a garden theme. That's why it's called Gloom to Bloom Summit. And the 4 days are broken into 4 ways of creating a garden. Like, think of, I love the metaphor of a garden,
Me too.
because really what we're doing is creating our inner garden.
Yes,
And
we
so
are.
the first day is all about,
Of the mind.
yeah, the first day is all about prepping my soil. And so that first day we'll learn from many speakers about their grief story, how they made their way through it, what they needed for support and that kind of stuff. And that's probably going to be the hardest day because, we'll be hearing a lot of stories there, but that's really just digging up the soil, pulling out the weeds, the rocks, and getting it ready. The next day is called Planting My Seeds. And it's about, it's kind of looking at the physical environment and what do I need to do to create my garden so that it'll grow? What do I need to do for my body? What do I need to do with the people that are around me? So it's kind of a physical in nature. The next day is about tending my garden. So once your seeds are planted and they start sprouting, what do I need to do to make them thrive? Same thing with my thoughts that I've planted and they're sprouting. What do I need to do to make them thrive? So it's about, watering them, giving them attention, bringing in education and learning that helps. That's like fertilizer for your mind and for your inner garden.
That's true.
And then the 4th day is Bloom. So that's our spiritual day. That's where you will be speaking about. And it's just about really connecting with spirit, finding the right people around you to support you that are going to help you grow and thrive and to keep blooming.
Yes.
And the other thing too is, like any garden, any good gardener knows that, when you've got a beautiful flower garden, sometimes flowers die, they start, and you got to prune those. You got to take them out because you want to be focusing your energy on them because you need to make room for another good idea or another beautiful bloom. So I just really love the idea of going from gloom to bloom, and all of the speakers are, especially on days 2, 3, and 4, are really talking to their expertise in their area and how we can help everybody to kind of just rise up and move forward and in a way that works. Because I think that a lot of times, we're told, just raise your energy, just raise your vibration, just think happy thoughts and say good affirmations. But the thing is and don't look at, a lot of them say, and don't think about your problem. But the challenge with that is that the problem still sits there. Like, my issue with my appendix, that yucky energy still sat there until my body couldn't take it anymore. And then it ridded itself of it. Right.
I love that. I proclaim you, Preacher Paula, because you must have been listening to my sermons over the last few years, because I'm constantly saying, all right, you guys, you got to get up off your mushrooms. We got to go be passion flower vines out there. And everybody's always laughing at me because I'm so cheesy. But I love symbology of flowers. I actually do flower readings in some of my events, and because I love flowers. I love plants. And the symbology of flowers is just so spiritual. Yeah. And where did this concept of gloom to bloom come from? Do you feel it might have been spiritually inspired?
Well, I've actually, When I started doing my Facebook group,
Hmm.
I started doing this, and this started during the pandemic. So I was out taking walks, and it's like, well, what can I talk about? And I happened upon this on one of my walks, this really cute little garden at an elementary school, and it just had beautiful paintings and
Oh,
things. And I got to thinking, life is like a garden. I mean, I've heard that metaphor before
yes.
in metaphysical healings. A lot of people explain things that way, and I just got to thinking, that's just really cool that, and so all of my videos that I did after that, like I did one when I was back in Washington pulling weeds, and I'm sitting here pulling weeds in my garden and talking about how that's
How
like pulling out
beautiful.
the yucky thoughts in your inner garden. So I just really liked how that felt. And I love flowers, and,
Of
and
course.
I'm not a huge, I go in phases with gardening. Sometimes I do it full out, and
Me
other
too.
years I don't do it at all. So, but I just really love that idea. And when I was trying to think of the name, I had thought about inner garden,
Mhm.
and but I all the I for some reason I just got to thinking about bloom. I love the word bloom, and let's bloom. And then I started thinking, well, what rhymes with bloom? So I did a search online to look at
Wow.
all the words that rhyme with
I love
bloom, and
it.
I came across gloom. And a couple of people, when I first shared that with them, they're like, I don't know, gloom is kind of are you sure that's like,
Yep. It's a
being.
perfect word.
Yeah, but really that's what it is. When I looked up the meaning of gloom, it was just like you have a heavy
Yeah. And that's
thing
grief.
over you that and you just can't get through it.
And
And you
that's
know,
what our people, our clients, our patients, our family members and friends who go through bereavement or loss or separation or divorce or loss of a pet, they grieve in a way that is gloomy. There is
yeah,
literally from a spiritual perspective, there is this literally a gloomy energy about them. You know the little kid on the Peanuts gang.
I
He
was
always
I
had
was
that.
just gonna say that the
Well,
little
must be psychic because that's what I
yeah,
was thinking. But it really is kind of interesting how he always had a gloominess about him, but he had a little cloud that was always following him.
right,
And it really, from a spiritual perspective, I can feel it around people and I can tell that they're in a state of gloominess or
yeah,
despair. It's almost like a hopelessness. And I
right,
can tell that there's a hole somewhere. Something's not complete. Something's been removed or discarded or lost. And so I think that's a powerful word. Gloom to
yeah,
bloom can't be any better. It's just like from death to rebirth.
yeah,
It's a concept, a fact of life. And you mentioned how some people, I think that's very, very smart. How you said, I like to point out to people that it's not about avoiding looking at or acknowledging the gloominess or the problem, but it's facing it. Because I know from all of my experiences and from my mentors and my gurus, they all say the same thing. If you will face your fear, it will no longer have power over you, or it
right,
will no longer affect you because you are literally shining the light of truth on it by learning to decipher what is really going on here that's causing me so much turmoil on whatever level. And you'll quickly find probably you've either made it out to be worse than it is, or you'll understand it from a much different perspective. And I think that goes right back to our personal responsibility in making sure we're in a state of happiness as best we can, or
yeah,
looking for somebody like you, looking for something like this summit to embrace, to jump into, to find a new community of supporters. I personally know several of your speakers, and I know several people who will be attending, and I know that the tribe, the family, the garden that you have created will be a therapeutic benefit. It's almost like, I can't think of the word, but basically people who go there can find really good friends to travel a new journey with. They
yeah,
won't be alone. They're going to find people in a similar vibration. And I think that's very empowering and powerful because it's hard to find groups like that. Thank
right.
goodness yours is virtual because now you can reach into other communities and really bring the fragrance of what you're bringing, which is a transformation through the grief process. And I just celebrate what you've done. I think that's beautiful.
The other thing too is that it's not just going to end on Sunday. One of the things that we're going to be crafting during the 4 days is what I call the Bloom Blueprint, and it's a 30-day blueprint that we complete each day. There's 4 sections to it, one for each day, And by the time the summit's over on Sunday, everybody should have their blueprint ready. And then the Saturday after the summit, we will start our 30-day Bloom challenge. And
Wow.
then within that private Facebook group, we will I'll come in there daily. I'll talk about what's on tap for today. What are we doing today? What's the activity? What should we be thinking about? And we'll complete it together. So, it's not just a 4-day thing. We're building a community to help us move through this. And the idea too is that, this is really healing for me, helping others. And of course, the most important thing I learned first, though, was I have to take care of myself. I got to fill
Yes.
my cup. And once my cup is full and I'm overflowing, I'm helping other people, which is
That
what I'm
is
doing
so
right
true.
now. So I want everybody else to get to that point. And this summit and the 30-day Bloom Challenge will help them get to
Oh,
where they've nurtured and loved themselves and filled their cups, and then they're ready to be a shining example to somebody else, because none of us are going to escape grief. We're
oh,
all going to
yes.
experience at one point or another as we get older.
That's a fact.
People die, and some of us, as we get close to retirement, that's going to be grief,
Yes.
that goes with that. So it behooves us to learn how to move through it. And one thing that's really important too is that I'll never say that it goes away, because it doesn't. We just learn to manage it. We learn how to learn the lessons that it's bringing to us in order to be a better version of ourselves. So, I still have moments where, I have days where it's like, oh, I just don't feel like doing anything. And why am I here? And,
Sure.
being the victim and gloomy, I
Being
still have
human.
many gloomy days. But the thing is that from all the work I've done, I know how to get out of it. And I don't allow myself
Wow.
to spiral down into the, way at the bottom of the well. I might be middle and I'm doing this, but then I get up. So
Powerful.
yeah,
Absolutely powerful. I think this is just going to be a truly the start of something really big. Something that will continue because it's such a beautiful concept. Great marketing. I mean, can't get any better than flowers and nature, and people love all of that. But it's also a healing experience. It's a
yeah,
spiritual experience. It's definitely really is mind, body, spirit experience,
yeah,
multiple levels. And that's something I've been thinking about as well for my own coaching programs, because
yeah,
it's not just me teaching.
right,
We have to. We're not just a physical body. We are an intellectual body. We're an emotional body and a spiritual body. And if you want to go further, there's even a celestial or astral body to us, and a higher
yeah,
aspect. So we literally have multiple expressions, and these programs, especially yours, speaks to that and is truly transformational on so many levels.
yeah.
So
And one thing that I think is really important too is that we all deserve to take ourselves through this, to spend time doing things like this. And one of the things I want everybody to not make the same mistakes I made, and spend all kinds of money to get. I spent a ton of money on just my appendicitis.
yes, I'm sure
It
you
cost
did.
me like 6 grand out of pocket for
Yep,
that. And then
it typically does.
I did do grief coaching, which was a pretty
Wow.
good chunk of change, but that
Yes,
was I felt I was worth it to do that. And
you are.
then my year of travel, I'm still adding up all the costs of that and how much that cost me.
The universe is abundant. You're fine.
Yeah. So my point being, though, is that, don't feel guilty, or
No.
that you don't deserve to spend a little bit of money to
Yes.
go through this summit, or to, go to someone else's event or do grief coaching or anything like that, that anything that you spend on yourself is well worth it. And I just want to,
Mm.
save some people from making some of the same mistakes I made, and finding that help sooner. I
Beautiful.
tried to deny it for a long, long time, and that cost me not only financially, but physically, mentally,
Yes, it
spiritually,
will. Well,
emotionally.
you definitely are a light bearer. You're bringing incredible light to the world, and I think this is truly. I keep saying it, but it really is going to be very transformational, revolutionary, maybe, because I don't know too many grief summits, and I think the people who go through loss and separation don't have experiences like these that are on so many different levels and it's done from a perspective of serving and healing for others as opposed to the mighty dollar
Right.
putting on an event. This is done from a place of definitely of higher thinking, a place of love from your heart. And this type of an outpouring wouldn't come if you had not begun to heal yourself. It's from that self love, loving yourself, that you can do the abundance of outpouring to create an experience like this, and you've done a pretty bang up job. So I'm very proud of
Yeah.
you. Proud to
Thank
be a
you.
part of the experience as well.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to have you too. And
Thank you.
also it's going to be fun. So I know a lot of people might think, "Oh, I don't want to spend 4 days talking about grief," but only the first day is going to probably be the toughest. After
Sure.
that, we're just going to have fun. We've got a lot of good stuff planned, and it's all about finding joy and purpose. And so that's what we're doing. And we're going to build some beautiful gardens and all bloom together. So it's going to be awesome.
Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an incredible journey this hour with our beautiful Paula Meyer. And I just want to remind you again of where you can find. Of course, I will put down in the description in the comments section how to find your registration links for this experience. But it's called Gloom to Bloom Summit. It's a Transforming the Grief Landscape. And this will be April 22nd through April 25th. And you can go to the URL gloomtobloomsummit.com. Thank you, alarm clock. And you can go to gloomtobloomsummit.com. I'll be putting that down into the body. And we look forward to seeing you all there. Paula Meyer, thank you for sharing your time
Thank
and your
you.
light with us here and
Thank
for
you.
visiting the garden here in Fort Lauderdale with us. But we will see you very soon. Ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in to Live with Kevin Lee. I'm just so honored that you continue to show up and be a part of this experience, our work to bring you just interesting people, new perspectives on the mind-body principles of metaphysics. And I do this because I love you. I outpour to you. So you guys bring me so much joy and happiness, and I just adore you, love you, and I thank you for being a part of my community. Until next time, we'll see you in the airwaves. Bye-bye.
Bye.